in Israel. That peace deal, woo-wee, feel the peace, don't you? No, there is no peace. We told you there would be no peace. Not that we don't want to see peace, but we just know you can't make peace with jihadi terrorists. And so Benjamin Netanyahu is out also saying that, you know what, I run Israel. Thank you very much, President Trump. He says that he overrides Trump and says U.S. can't stop Israel from annexing the West Bank. Quote, it doesn't matter. We're an independent country, end quote. Well, amen. Thank you, Benjamin Netanyahu. Now, by the way, so much happening related to Hamas, terrorism, digging up dead bodies, at least digging up one dead body and Hamas, and bringing it to Israel to say, here's one of your dead hostages. Well, it turns out, apparently, that individual was already brought back, buried, and I'm guessing from the news report, Hamas dug that body up and redelivered it. This is the caliber of people you're working with, okay? We're going to get into a lot more. But this would be an opportune time to announce that I have a brand new book coming out on Friday as a PDF. I'm going to be releasing a series of books. Some of them I've been working on for way too long, and I'm finishing them up and releasing them very quickly this fall. The first book in this series of books that I'm releasing that I've been working on a very long time is based on my TV show, 11 Hours, that I did back in 2019. And here's the title of the book. It's called October 7th Comes to America. And the subtitle is Inside the U.S. Network of Hamas. October 7th comes to America inside the U.S. network of Hamas. And of course, we know that one of the guys that was involved in carrying out October 7th has been found and arrested in Louisiana here in the United States. Now, this is a PDF book. We have no plans of printing copies of this book right now, because I don't have the time or the staff to fill all these orders, number one. Number two, there is really no reason to spend all that money printing a physical book for the volume of people that will order it versus those who want it online in PDF. About the only book I plan on publishing and printing is going to probably be my Revelation commentary and study that should be out in the new year. It'll be on PDF before the year's over, but out as a physical book right in the new year, we pray. But this is going to be the fastest way, the most cost-efficient way for us to produce these books. So this one will be available to Vault members. You don't need to buy it, Vault members. It'll be a part of your Vault membership. It'll be out this Friday automatically in the Vault at worldviewtube.com/vault. October 7th Comes to America, subtitled Inside the U.S. Network of Hamas. Now, last night I interviewed, and then we're going to go to Aaron. I interviewed Mitch Wexler. Mitch Wexler. He's the gentleman that has a company. He's a developer. And he is the one that has done an awful lot of research related to what is, he says, minimum, conservative side, $5.1 trillion in school bond fraud. One of his friends who is a nationally known expert, economics expert, they ran some of the numbers and they said, your numbers are too conservative. It's more like $17 trillion school bond fraud. If they're selling school bonds, he said, there's overwhelmingly likelihood of fraud. Some school districts are more fraudulent than others. But he goes on and he laid out last night for 2 hours. 2 hours. I interviewed him. It's now available at Worldview Tube. You want to go watch it, share it with a family member, a friend. It's available at Worldview Tube. Now, one of the things we discussed is, and we're going to release some articles on this, aren't we, Logan? We're going to be releasing some articles on this. And basically, he actually, he's brilliant. I don't think this guy sleeps very much. And this is basically what he sent me notes. This guy's a prolific writer. Okay. Here's some video notes. Interview with Brandon House. Here's some of the things we covered. And he sent these this morning. I'm like, well, this is very helpful. All right. Taxes must be fair and equitable for all property owners. Number one, 37.8% of household population will go bankrupt or lose the roof over their head. Why is that? Because $9,000 is what separates most American families, a big chunk, 37.8, about 40% of American families. What separates them from bankruptcy is $9,000. The average tax bill is $7,000 and rising, which means with all the other costs of inflation, that $2,000 buffer after the $7,000 average tax bill is taken out means they're at the end of the line. And so you're going to start seeing, he says, more and more people losing their home because they keep raising the taxes on them. He said that's 42,000 households at risk. I think that's a typo. I think it's more than that. I think it's 42 million. He didn't have enough zeros. It's 42 million homes. Any school district that raises bonds has a high probability of being involved in bond fraud. The AA and BB ratings of the bond agencies are wrong, as the ratings do not denote the fraud necessary to achieve the revenue to pay for the bonds. 5, there's not a single school district that we have seen that can answer how the bonds are going to be paid off. And they're issuing more bonds to keep paying for the interest that's been rolled up and out, which by very definition, that's a Ponzi scheme, right? 6, the compound cumulative interest is magnitudes bigger than the original principal, as the bonds have been rolled out and interest rolled up at least since 2000. This started in at least the year 2000. 7, the inflation is from two purveyors, Fed and school districts via what is known as the Central Appraisal District. Now, how many of you even know what a Central Appraisal District is? I'm not sure. I've never heard of such a thing. But it turns out your school district actually turns around and creates a Central Appraisal District. Isn't that interesting? This is the fox guarding the hen house, apparently. So your school district creates a Central Appraisal District that goes around appraising the value of homes. Now, they know they cannot get blood out of a turnip. So when they go to the less influential, financially fluent neighborhoods, let's just say it, they go to poorer neighborhoods, people that are maybe even in poverty, are very close to it. How are you going to get much money out of them? You're not. So they set a tax rate that maybe they can afford and get away with. But then to make up for that, they go over to the other side of town and they just lay it on real thick. Well, that's not the way the law is supposed to work. It's supposed to be fair and equitable for all property owners. So the Central Appraisal District is involved, he said, in criminal activity at many levels. That's first and foremost. Number 2, then the school district says this is what we need to operate. And Mitch says what they do then is set the tax appraisal based on the number they need to achieve to fund the schools. So again, it's not based on any kind of uniformal standard. And then he says, if you don't pay it, they will threaten to take your home. He said that's the very definition of racketeering or RICO. Creating a false debt and then making threats if you don't pay it. He gets into all this last night in 2 hours. Now, this is conservatively $5.1 trillion, but the real number off the books that he can't see, that other experts have gone in and said, this is what you're not seeing, is $17 trillion. And we're reaching the end. And if this thing tips over, most Americans are not going to understand how it just happened. They're going, what? He goes on to say the inflation is from two purveyors, Fed and school districts via the Central Appraisal District. Inflation is a hidden tax and thus a fraud. It is a default and it creates the financial crimes we are forced to endure until the system simply implodes, which is now in play. 8, Argyle, Texas. Approximately $343,000 in outstanding fraudulent school district bond debt as compared to the median home value of $450,000. Godly, Texas. They have approximately $120,000 per house as compared to the $160,000 median home value. Uniform and equal cannot, as required in law, when the ARB panels and the Central Appraisal Districts refuse to acknowledge uniform and equal, when the Supreme Court of Texas blocks ultra-virus, acting outside the scope of authority, wherein the Texas law states that the chief appraiser is the party responsible in law when the law itself does not exist, as the appraisal review board as the exclusivity remedy, which it cannot be, as it has no authority in law to determine fraud, thus creating the system institutionalized moral hazard, thus setting the stage for terminal failure. What we're basically all that's to say, nobody wants to go against the system. The system is rigged. The judges, the courts, nobody, your attorney generals, your governor, they all likely know this, he said. He's very adamant they know it. Which, if they know it and don't do anything about it, is, I think, part of the fraud, making them personally liable and responsible. But nobody wants to take on the system because the system would require some really important things to happen, and nobody wants to go against the system. But in the meantime, you're being stripped of your equity in your home. He says that he built a neighborhood across the street from his house. And he said after he started covering all of this and bringing this forward, the Central Appraisal District taxed his home as being worth $1 million more than almost the exact same home across the street that he built. I'm like, what? Yeah, I built the neighborhood, he said. And the almost exact same home across the street is appraised at being worth $1 million less than my house. I said, well, what are you doing? He said, I fight it. And I have to spend a lot of money fighting it. Apparently he owns some malls, and they've turned around and they appraise his malls at ridiculous figures. And he fights that and wins, only for them to turn around again and give ridiculous appraisals. He's ready to set up for there to be class action lawsuits for us as a people to sue.
Hello, I'm Brandon House. I want to thank you for all your support at wvwfoundation.com that helps make possible pushing out 24/7 content for free. Without your support, we'd have to put it all behind a paywall. But thanks to you and your support through our foundation, we're able to push it out for free as a broadcast service and broadcast ministry of WVW Foundation. Please consider going there and setting up an automatic monthly contribution, or go there and make an occasional contribution. If you prefer to support us through the mail, you'll find our mailing address there at wvwfoundation.com. You can also call and make your contribution over the phone by calling 901-825-0652. That's 901-825-0652. Again, all these details are available at wvwfoundation.com. Thank you for your support as we try to help people around the world understand the times through the lens of a Christian worldview.
All right, welcome back. So there's so much more to this that we don't have time to get into because we did this for 2 hours last night. But he's saying that when this whole system collapses, if they do not put a floor and a ceiling on this, you're going to see an unemployment rate of 35%. 35%. So that's all there at worldviewtube.com. Someone emailed last night, I guess, and said, you come up with the most interesting guests And I learned things I never knew and I never hear hardly anywhere else. Many things I don't hear anywhere else. Well, all I can say to that is, well, thank you, number one. But number two, that's because your host covers what he's interested in. I, like many of you, love to learn. And I always want to learn more. And I want to know what I don't know. And I want to know how things work, how things operate. I like asking questions because I'm trying to figure out how things work. And what I'm, of course, finding more and more and more is that pretty much everything we know is a fraud. There's hardly nothing that we count on anymore that's not a fraud. Local, state, federal government. Fraud. Everywhere we turn. You know, they really should open up the doors of any white-collar prison cells. Any people that are in prison or in jail for white-collar crimes, they should open the doors. Because whatever those people have done is nothing. It is a paper cut compared to the slit throats that the local, state, and federal government are doing. The federal government, local government, state government is going around literally committing financial homicide. And then they throw people in prison and jail for white-collar crimes at the equivalent of a paper cut compared to what the government's doing. This is the equivalent of Adolf Hitler putting Billy Graham on trial. And you'd say, really? Or name any other historical figure. Oskar Schindler. And everybody would go, well, that's a joke. We all know what Oscar was doing was saving people, making sacrifices. Hitler is the criminal. Well, this is where we're at today. The real criminal is the system. And they literally are putting people in prison. I'm not saying they are the equivalent of Oskar Schindler or Billy Graham, but they're putting people in prison that what they have done is so small compared to the government that's putting them away for whatever said crime they did. Now, that isn't two wrongs don't make a right. I'm not saying it does. But this is the lack of moral authority that is now missing from the system. Now, here's what's very interesting. The system is what the Marxists, the globalists, are always talking about burning down the system. Well, let me tell you something. The system will burn itself down. If our enemies will just wait long enough, as I've said for years, the whole system is going to implode on its own because of greed and crime. You see, the problem is either too much government or too little government. Too much government or too little government. Our founders said, the system we've given you only is a system that works for a Christian people. Religion, morality, and knowledge. Those are the three things you had to express in your application to be a territory that wanted to become a state. You had to show deference, respect for the Northwest Ordinance. Religion, morality, and knowledge being necessary for good government. And the teaching of that in our schools. That's why many of your state constitutions reference religion, morality, and knowledge. Religion, what denomination? No, it doesn't mean a denomination. It means religion means a belief in God, a moral law giver. The laws of nature, nature is God. Universal law based on the character and nature of God. Religion. Morality, that which is right based on the reflection of God's character and nature. That which is moral, the moral law, based on the religion, God. Religion, morality, knowledge. Knowledge, acquisition of truth. What is truth? That which is consistent with the moral character and nature of God found in his person. You see how they're all tied together? And our founders said, this is the only government we can create for a Christian people. And it will only work for a Christian people. Well, we reject God. We remove God from the schools. We remove the teaching of even creation next to evolution in 1980. You can only teach there is no God. You just evolved. You're a mistake. And we've created immorality, lawlessness, and now the system's infected with criminals and crooks. And the system's about to implode. Now, the system may implode sooner rather than later. I don't know what's going to happen November 1st. But I can tell you that there is now evidence of a huge number of Americans that are on food stamps. And apparently 59% of all illegal aliens are collecting food stamps. 59%. Meaning that most of the people getting food stamps from the U.S. government and the U.S. taxpayer are not even Americans. This is being reported now by one broadcast out there on Newsmax. And it seems very consistent with what we are seeing from other reports. Now, can I ask you, when you thought that it was Americans, legal American citizens on food stamps who are about to run out of their food come Saturday, what did you think? Well, they might get a little upset. They might get a little upset. They might start taking to looting. And boy, with their Obama phones, it wouldn't take much for them to organize flash mobs and clean out the grocery stores. And what is the one security guard standing at the front of the store going to do about it? He's going to do nothing. Most of them aren't even armed. They're going to back up and move out of the way. And well, they should. Because what are you going to do? Lose your life or be, severely beaten over a bag of bread? Well, that was when you thought it was just maybe Americans on food stamps. Now you find out 59% of all the illegals, which means you got a ton of Islamist, Marxist, people from countries that already hate America, and they were brought in here, and they are Marxist and Islamist. They come from third world countries. They're already lawbreakers. They're here illegally. And you don't think they're going to get organized? Don't you feel like this is a setup? Apparently, the Democrats won't open the government. The Republicans apparently want to keep taking votes to try to open the government and get going. But we're being told that a lot of the Democrats are saying if they open the government, they're going to lose a lot of money from some of their biggest donors who want the government to stay closed. Now, why do they want the government to stay closed? To upset the people in the military? To upset the FAA? Controllers in the towers? To cause there to be organized strikes or sick delays? Well, not so sure. It seems to me the more likely answer is they want the government to stay closed so those food stamps stop coming, and then they can mobilize a mob. How many of them have been threatening President Trump? How many of them have been talking horribly about conservative, patriotic, Christian, pro-life Americans? This has been going on for years now. We have the video clips. And apparently now, if this plays out, and I don't know what's going to happen, they'll have millions and millions of Americans, but millions and millions of illegals who already are criminals. They're here illegally, and who, many of them hate America, going without their food. Now, some of these people that get the food stamps, according to videos of people who are lay people on the streets of big cities, are making videos saying, you do realize that a lot of these folks sell these food stamps. They sell them. They'll sell $4,000 or $5,000 of food stamps for $1,000 cash so they can go buy drugs and alcohol. Now, what are you going to do when all these people don't have their drugs, don't have their alcohol, don't have their food? I don't know what's going to happen. Maybe nothing will happen. But I know that come Saturday, if this doesn't get turned back on, and I'm not saying it should, you could see some lawlessness. And is that what they want when they talk about burning down the system? Now, here's what's so interesting. The system has become so corrupt. So corrupt is the system that what they're going to be burning down, and it's figurative speech, I pray. Hopefully they're not really going to do that 2020 repeat. But what they're really burning down is not the capitalist system. They hate the capitalist system. We know that from the Weather Underground. This is not a capitalist system. This is corporatism. This is a welfare state. This is socialism. That's what we have. Posing as capitalism. And when it all fails, including the collapse of what appears to be $17 trillion in fraudulent school bonds, according to Mitch Wexler, they're going to blame it on the free market system. You see, it was a fraud. Capitalism doesn't work. This is not capitalism. All I know is I have no idea what's going to happen come Saturday. I pray everybody keeps their, head about them. But I'll tell you, for one, I'm making sure that I have all the coffee and whatever else the wife buys. I said, make sure we have everything. In fact, we did that the other day over the weekend. We went to one of those big box stores and grabbed a few extra things. And I said, because I have no idea what's coming next week. But I don't know that you want to be in a grocery store, personally. I don't want to be in a grocery store that is all of a sudden a flash mob. You've seen those flash mobs, right? I don't want to be in the middle of that. I don't want my wife in the middle of that. I would urge all of you to go to the grocery store and get what you need, and then let's watch what happens and pray nothing happens. But if I know these people and how evil they are, and when was the last time you ever saw this happen? If I know how evil they are, I think they want these food stamps to stop. They want these people irritated, and they want to mobilize their, pressure from below. Remember that? The communist tactic. Pressure from above, elected officials, pressure from below. Their community organizers that they mobilize as their battering ram. And I think they want to provoke Donald Trump and his National Guard, the National Guard that he can call up. I think they want to provoke something in these cities to then see what Donald Trump will do so they can then use the narrative as we go into the holidays. Look at all these people starving. Trump's building a ballroom while people are starving and having no Christmas or no Thanksgiving. Will it go that long? I don't know. But I think they want to gaslight President Trump, and then their predictive prophecy about him can come true. Oh, you see, we told you he was authoritarian. We told you he was a wannabe dictator and tyrant. You see? Now, I don't have time to get into it now because we need to go to Aaron after the break, but tonight, I'm going to play a video because I think this lady's figured something out that I'm going to play tonight. I think what Donald Trump is building is not a ballroom. I thought the number seemed a little high. $300 million for a ballroom? I think he's building a gigantic data center underneath the White House, just like has been done in Israel for about the same price. I think he's building a gigantic data center that will really help to run the whole government, and it needs to be in the most secure place in D.C. Well, that would be underneath the White House.
Consumers often ask, what should I expect when I take the Bella Grace elixir? And the answer's varied. It really depends on what your health and wellness needs are. I would consider this as your foundational core product for a whole range of health and wellness issues. Let me give you a few examples. If you're a little bit older and you have some joint health issues, some problems with mobility and discomfort, the elixir is going to be your best friend. If you have some skin health issues, wrinkles, hydration, aging, all of those elements are going to be benefited from the elixir, including age spots. Now, if you're in a younger demographic, maybe visual health is where you need some assistance. Eye fatigue, dry eyes, all of those are going to be benefited by the elixir. It's a core product because it benefits so many.
Glad you're with us. So we're going to get into that more tonight. What I think is really being built is a data center under the White House, and the ballroom is just a cover. We have President Trump on video saying the military is going to be involved. The military is going to be involved. Why would you have the military involved in building a ballroom? What do you say, the Corps of Engineers? Really? They go around building ballrooms? My father-in-law was in the Army Corps of Engineers as an architect. He signed up instead of being drafted. I don't think he went around designing ballrooms. He was driving bulldozers and building bridges and other infrastructure, not ballrooms. Why would the military be involved? Well, who is involved in Operation Warp Speed? The military. Who is Palantir working with already, according to numerous reports? The military. And if you're going to create a file on every American, as we hear that Palantir and others want to do, and you're going to run the whole government with this, well, wouldn't you want it where the president of the United States can be heavily involved with this and getting this information and data, particularly if you're also using the data center to help oversee what's going on with any kind of war we get in? Remember, we're talking about Palantir and these other companies being able to be involved in war and war planning and strategy with AI. Well, wouldn't you want that to be tied to your underground bunkers under the White House? And don't forget, they have all kinds of tunnel systems. I mean, just ask JFK. Isn't that how they were coming in and out of the White House during the Cuban Missile Crisis, through the tunnels under the Treasury Department over to the White House? We won't talk about people sneaking in their girlfriends. We'll lay that aside. Let's just talk about the guys that were coming in and out of the White House during the needed secret meetings about the Cuban Missile Crisis, and they didn't want the public panicking and knowing what's going on yet. And so they're coming in under tunnels from the Treasury Department to the White House. There's all kinds of stuff under there, folks. They were building a lot during the Obama years. Go take a look at that. Now, if you're going to run wars and possibly national disasters, civil unrest, massive chaos in the U.S., the president needs to be able to do that from the Situation Room that's tied to this infrastructure that can be highly protected and very fast without lines being moved in, that you have to worry about being cut or compromised. The most safe place to do it is under the White House, the most, really, frankly, probably most protected building in America, maybe the world. The ballroom's a distraction. So much of what we're seeing is a distraction. Let's go to our reporter on the ground in Israel, Aaron Lavarco. Aaron, welcome to the broadcast. Thanks for being with us.
Hey, Brennan, great to be with you as always.
The news is running so fast today. There's more than we can get to, but we have to come to you because there's a lot of developments in Israel. Basically, the ceasefire, is over. Tell me the latest coming out of Israel.
The latest is big news. Our Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, a short time ago, ordered our military to attack Hamas in the Gaza Strip. He has given this order because Hamas has repeatedly broken the ceasefire. They have broken all of their promises in regarding to handing over the hostages. They've been playing around. They've been making a fool out of Donald Trump. They have been reneging, saying one thing and totally fabricating on the other hand. So our jets, really, in the last hour, they have been non-stop taking off. So they're hitting in the southern part of the Gaza Strip and the Rafah area, which is not too far from the Philadelphia corridor, getting close there to the Egyptian border. So, this is gloves off. And what I've been reading, Brandon, is that Israel has informed the American officials before we acted, so they are aware. There has been talk of us doing it in the last number of days, but President Trump has come up a couple of times and said, well, it's not really the leaders of Hamas who are playing around, it's the people on the ground, the rebels. We don't care. They're firing missiles at us again. They're firing rockets at us again. And by the way, not only have we started to hit back, we have crossed the yellow line. Part of the Donald Trump peace deal, the 20-point plan, is that we would still control 53% of the Gaza Strip, and then there will be a yellow line placed. Well, we have crossed that yellow line. So it's gloves off. And this, like I wrote to you earlier, Brandon, this could be the end of Hamas. This is what the people are calling for. Enough. Enough. People are saying Bibi was wrong to agree with Donald Trump. And of course, I've said it many times, that's the price that he paid, that we paid. And it's interesting. I don't remember if I brought this up, Brandon, but it seems that before the peace deal, Donald Trump, he was actually telling us, go in, finish off Hamas, giving us the green light. But it was us who said, no, we want the hostages. And so Donald Trump saw that and he said, okay, if that's what you want. And that's what pushed him into making this deal. He was actually for us going in. We are the ones who made this wrong decision. So,
in fact, now I'm hearing now that Prime Minister Netanyahu not only is letting them go back in and there's nonstop bombing, but I'm reading that one of your, I guess, Israeli's finance minister, Smotrich,
yes,
he wants Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to order the IDF to rearrest all the terrorists who were released.
That's right. That's right, Brandon. Absolutely. Now, listen, how are we going to do that? Do you know, I was listening to a general today, Brandon. He said it's easier to bomb the Iranian reactor nuclear plant than to get a terrorist under the ground. That's what one of our generals.
Yeah, but those reactors are so deep underground. Israel nor America has bombs, I'm told by military guys here in the U.S. on camera who come on my show. We have no bombs to go deep enough to get those. You're going to have to send people in on the ground to put those in.
Right, but here's the game changer. We have our living captives back now. So let's see what our defense minister, our top generals do. It's a different ball game now.
All right, let's talk about the hostage body that was dug up. The body Hamas returned from Gaza last night is not one of the 13 deceased hostages it committed to return. According to officials, the remains belong to an Israeli who was kidnapped to Gaza and already buried in Israel. Another stage ploy by Hamas, weaponizing grief, distorting the deal, and mocking every effort to bring the hostages home. Did they really come over to Israel, dig up a body, and redeliver it to you guys?
Brandon, just when you think that they've steeped as low as they can go, the family of this deceased man are just horrified. This is part of their strategy. It's called humiliation. They are trying to humiliate us. They humiliated our women. They humiliated our men. They humiliated some of our old captives, old men. They shaved off some of their beards to make them look like Muslims. It's humiliation. In fact, we found documents, Brandon, before October 7th. This was their plans. They wrote what their strategy was, and one of them is to humiliate us. And this is just another way of doing it.
Now, let's talk about your prime minister. I guess he says it doesn't matter. We're an independent country. So he's really, really pushing back now against President Trump. I think your country did not appreciate him allowing President Trump to push him around and appear as though the one in charge was Trump of your country. And apparently he's read the polls and heard enough. So he is now made more than one comment about that. By the way, what are we looking at right there? There's video footage I'm seeing of them digging up a body. Does anyone know what that is, Logan?
Correct.
What is that, Aaron?
Yeah, I think, I haven't seen this clip, but I think this could be the clip of them digging up the body of the hostage that was already returned. No. It could be, Brandon, this is the real sick part. One of the bodies that was returned a while ago, they buried some of his body parts inside of Gaza. And they know where the body parts were. That's them digging those body parts up.
Here we go. Hamas are lying about our hostages, and here's the proof. Yesterday, Hamas terrorists were filmed removing body remains from a prepared structure and reburying them nearby before summoning Red Cross representatives to stage a false discovery for photographers. Despite claiming difficulty locating the bodies of deceased hostages, Hamas continues to hold and manipulate the remains it refuses to release under the agreement. Hamas's claims of lacking engineering equipment are baseless. Such tools are unnecessary for the transfer of remains and do not prevent the return of the deceased hostages. These are disgusting people. I mean, just be done with it. But you guys are going in, and hopefully you'll kill a lot of them.
Brandon, once again, they're finding our weaknesses. Do you know when there's a terror attack on a bus or at a bus stop or at a cafeteria, we have an organization, they're called Zaka. They will go into the scene and they will go with a fine-tooth comb looking for every and any single part of the body, whether it's a hair, whether it's a piece of skin, whether it's a finger, because that is Judaism. Every single part of the body has to be buried. They know what they're doing by doing this, and it's all part of trying to demoralize us and humiliate us.
All right, let's talk about demoralizing. Here is Nick Fuentes on Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson is, well, we already know. We've given him over. We've turned him over. We have turned him over to God, and we were asking God to do with Tucker as he wills. Tucker, I believe, his conscience has been seared. He's a tool of Satan now, I believe. And now he's interviewing Nick Fuentes. Listen.
So it was like late December. It's actually funny. It was December 18th. I remember because that's an important date to me. And it's Joseph Stalin's birthday.
Oh.
I'm a fan.
You're a fan of Stalin's?
Mm-hmm. Oh, I was an admirer. But we don't need to go into that, I guess.
Well, that's okay. Let's get back to it. We'll circle back to that.
It was weird because the reason I mentioned.
All right. So he's interviewing a guy who says he is a fan of Joseph Stalin. Okay. This is a guy that's also made just incredible comments about the Jews. And that goes on to be made by Tucker and Fuentes, who are attracting millions of young people. Okay. Millions. And Turning Point USA, I told you guys last week, would be Turning Point USA into apostasy. If they platform Tucker Carlson ever again, then we got a serious indication of where that organization is planning to go. By the way, they can't keep playing both sides to the middle, okay? They're going to have to pick a team. But I want you to comment on that when we come back, along with another clip by Fuentes and Tucker about the Jews. And now we have, of course, the guy running for mayor in New York. Mamdani is saying, basically, anytime you see something you don't like, you know it actually comes from the IDF, because the IDF, they've been trained. They've trained these people.
News is moving faster than ever, and so are we. Worldview Tube brings you 24/7 live stream coverage, and now, real-time alerts when it matters most. Once you have the Worldview Tube app installed, exit the app and navigate your way to Settings. In Settings, locate the tab labeled Notifications. Select the Notifications tab. Scroll down until you locate the Worldview Tube app icon. Select the tab, and here you can turn on and customize your notification experience for the Worldview Tube app. News doesn't wait, and neither should you. Turn on push notifications to stay informed. Every headline as it happens.
You're watching Worldview Tube, built on the 35 years of Worldview books, documentaries, research, high-profile interviews, and the radio and television broadcasts of Brannon House.
All right, welcome back. Worldview Radio website, worldviewradio.com. Be sure to stay tuned for Crosstalk with Jim Schneider coming up at the top of the hour on the VCY America Radio Network. America's original Christian talk program since the 1970s on over 100 outlets nationwide. If you do not have a terrestrial radio station in your market, you can obviously hear them also online at vcy.org, vcy.org. We also are going to be doing an international online Worldview weekend on Thursday and Friday. December, I think that's 4 and 5 off the top of my head. December 4 and 5. I think that's a Thursday and Friday. Massive speakers, Dr. Jack Hibbs, and so many more a part of that as we do a wrap on the year and look into 2026. One of the things I would like to do is to play for you, starting maybe even tonight through the end of the year, is some testimonials about what our broadcast means to you, what you have learned, maybe how you've been impacted. Maybe you've become a believer by listening to some of this. Maybe you were once a skeptic or a critic, and you now are a Christian. Or maybe it's greatly influenced your spouse. We heard many say their spouse was a critic and now won't miss the broadcast. Or maybe it's one of your kids. We'd love to have those audios to play and encourage others with those testimonies. So if you would like to record a testimony for us to play on the air, we can start collecting those today. You can leave your testimony at 901-468-9357. You're welcome to say your name if you want. Otherwise, you just give your first name, and you don't have to list where you live. But if you'd like to say, hey, I'm John from Waukesha, you could do that. Or I'm Jill from, Knoxville, you can do that. 901, my editor Jill is from Knoxville, by the way. 901-468-9357 is the number. 901-468-9357. No one's going to answer, okay? You're going to leave a voicemail, and we'll play it later. So we'd love to be encouraged by your testimony and encourage others. Show them the power of broadcast, Christian broadcasting. 901-468-9357. Again, we'd love to hear your testimonies. We're going to play them on the air. So leave your voicemail testimony if you would, please. 901-468-9357. And we're going to be making a big deal of that between now and the end of the year, but particularly between now and the 1st of December, okay? Let's go to a clip. Nick Fuentes, maybe some of you don't know who that guy is. I don't know a great deal about him other than he has millions of viewers apparently and is very anti-Semitic. We already heard he loves Stalin. He's an admirer of Stalin. And of course, if there's a crazy kooky person out there, Tucker Carlson's going to interview him. And here he is with Tucker.
How do you explain Mike Huckabee, Ted Cruz, and there are a lot like that, John Bolton. I mean, I've known them all, George W. Bush, like Karl Rove. I mean, all people I know personally who I've seen be seized by this brain virus, and they're not Jewish. Most of them are self-described Christians, and then the Christian Zionists who are, Christian Zionists. Like, what is that?
Right.
And I can just say for myself, I dislike them more than anybody. Because what? Because it's Christian heresy, and I'm offended by that as a Christian. That's why. So I don't why not? I'm pissed at the neocon.
Oh, sorry. Go dump that. That shouldn't have gotten in there. I thought we edited that out, guys. Hopefully don't cult that. All right. Tucker is not a Christian, okay? You shall know them by their fruits. You shall know them by their fruits. Tucker is offended by heresy. Yet he has on one heretic after another. One heretic after another. But he tells you he's offended by heresy. And now he's saying that he can't stand the Christian Zionist. He hates them. And then we have other clips where they're talking about the Jews and the network of the Jews. You guys find the timing of all this? With Hamas rising in America. They just arrested one of the guys that carried out October 7th in Israel, in America. Hamas is rising, replacement theology is rising, Jew hatred is rising, the hatred of Christians who do interpret the Bible in context, using Scripture to interpret Scripture. We are now being targeted. And what did I tell you in the coming religious Reich and religious Trojan horse? There's a false dominant church, and the persecution will come from the right. Comment on this, please. Aaron?
Yeah, Brannon, that's serious stuff, especially when you said, I forgot the number you quoted, how many
millions
young people are following him. That is, the damage that he's doing is chronic. And, we need to, believers who are listening, pray. We need to pray. If we can't do anything physically, which we shouldn't, we need to pray this man is stopped, that his voice is somehow stopped. I got nothing more to say, Brandon, because he's accusing us of heresy, the people who believe in Christian Zionism. Hey, who's the first Zionist? I say is God. God is the one who promised the land to Abraham and to his seed and to his generations following. So he's coming against God and against his word. God have mercy on him.
Yeah. Well, this is all growing. And now we have this man who's running for mayor in New York, who's likely going to win. And he has said this. We try very hard to edit all clips out. I don't think we've got him swearing. Isn't that interesting? We can rely better on the Islamic Marxist than Tucker. Here we go.
The importance for me of international solidarity is that it takes me out of the American political landscape and reminds me just how tame some of the things are that I'm actually calling for.
True.
And it reminds me of the necessity of grounding ourselves in the struggles as opposed to the fights around the struggles. For anyone to care about these issues, we have to make them hyperlocal. We have to make clear that when the boot of the NYPD is on your neck, it's been laced by the IDF.
Okay, when the boot of the NYPD is on your neck, it has been laced by the IDF. Now they're running around saying that ICE and all these people have been trained by IDF. That's the propaganda now all over social media. Your police, NYPD, ICE, they have all been trained by IDF. Now you stir up the anti-Semitism, the anti-Christian, and then you take away their food. And you wonder what is going to happen. And I don't know, because I'm not a prophet. 15 seconds, Aaron.
Brandon, he's going after the Jewish people. He's going after the Jewish state. And this is someone else we need to pray for. Christians, rise up and pray for
Take care, guys.
This has been...
And we're back with WROS out of Jacksonville, Florida, and you here on Worldview Tube. Here's another report, a shocking report by Palestinian Media Watch. And I'm going to get this gentleman back on the broadcast. Claims that the European Union transferred $150 million to the Palestinian Authority for salaries to officials. In reality, the Palestinian Authority used this money to divert tens of millions of dollars to murderers of Israelis and Americans and to, quote, ordinary, and quote, terrorists. According to the Palestinian Authority, last budget documents from before the war, it paid a jaw-dropping $30 million per month to terrorists. The Palestinian Authority recently claimed it stopped paying salaries to terrorists. Today, the Foreign Minister Gideon Saar exposed the scam. The Palestinian Authority simply shifted payments from the Prisoners and Martyrs Authority to the Palestinian Postal Bank, funneling the money under the radar. So we now know that the European Union transferred $150 million to the Palestinian Authority for, quote, salaries to officials. But the money was used to go to terrorists. Come back again, whether it's our government, whether it's the European Union, the murderers, the terrorists, the child molesters, the fraudsters, the lawlessness. If World War III broke out, Aaron, I don't know that I would have a side I could root for. I mean, I'm going to sit here and say, oh, Lord, please spare the European Union. I would say, Lord, spare the good Christians. Spare the, quote, innocent, end quote. But that's about all I could pray for, because Europe, like America, is asking to be destroyed because we keep violating God's laws over and over, and we're funding the people that want to murder the Christians, the Jews. They want to rape and pillage, and we're funding it. And we get up every day and work hard in Europe and America for them to take our money and give it to the murderers and the rapists. And they cut deals with them. And they go into business with them. And they let them build military facilities in Idaho, Qatar. I don't know who to root for anymore. Only one I can root for are the Christians, my Jewish friends who I want to see become believers, my Gentile friends I want to see become believers. But I can't root for any of these governments. I can only root for the people. I'm not sure I can root for your government anymore. I can mine. I can only root for the Jewish people.
Yeah. You know, it reminds me of Elijah. Elijah thought he was the only one left. And the Lord said, I've got my 7,000 reserved. They're in hiding. God has his lights here, there, and everywhere, even in Europe, which is so godless, so dark. I have people, friends, working in the United Nations, and they tell me how dark it is. I've been to Europe a number of times. In fact, Brandon, about a month ago, we celebrated the Feast of Tabernacles, and I had a group, and one of the ladies was from Germany, and she recognized me from your program, and she said, I watch Brandon all the way from Germany. She subscribed.
Oh, wow. You see, and we have Robert in the UK, right? And so I have Christian listeners. And then I think about all the people that I don't know, that don't listen to us, who are Christians. And I think of the children. And aside from praying for those people and rooting for those people, the same way I hope they pray and root for us here in America, because we're all subject to the same abuse by our own governments. The UK government is arresting the people for speaking the truth, for evangelizing, for preaching the gospel. You can't pass out Bibles and tracts. They want to arrest you in the UK. This is coming to America. Our own governments were calling us under the Biden regime domestic terrorists. So I can't root for any of these governments. I can only root for the people.
Yeah. And listen, even in the times of the kingdom of Israel, the kingdom of Judah, most of those kings were corrupt.
Yep.
Of God's people, the people of Israel, most of the kings were corrupt. There was only a few who brought about radical reformations. So we need to be on our knees. We need to be close to the Lord and pray that God would raise up people like he raised up prophets of old, people that had a voice, that had the word of God burning. We need people, and we need to pray for people, Christians that we know in key positions. Once again, people like Mike Huckabee, people that have a voice in the ear of these top leaders. There's still hope. We've got to hang on to the hope, even though it is dark. But the scriptures say the people walking in darkness have seen a great light. We got to believe that God is still on the throne, as dark as it is, and that his kingdom is going to be established. His church will not be shaken.
Amen.
The gates of hell. Amen.
Amen. Take care, guys.
You're watching Worldview 2, built on the 35 years of Worldview books, documentaries, research, high